Hello, horror fans, and welcome back to the Script to Scream podcast, where we delve into the spine-tingling world of horror cinema. Each week, we look at the scariest scenes, unmask the deeper meanings behind your favourite horror films, and explore the psychology of fear that keeps us coming back for more.
From script analysis to scene breakdowns, we'll be dissecting your favorite horror movies to see just what makes them tick. So whether you're a seasoned horror aficionado or just starting to explore the genre, join us as we unravel the spine-tingling stories that haunt the silver screen.
I'm Will.
And I am Lee.
Now, for those of you that may be new to the show, why not check out our website, scripttoscreampodcast.com, where you can find a lot more insight into the scripts and the films that we cover. We've added scareology graphs to illustrate the scares in each of the films and annotated script excerpts to highlight some of the ideas and concepts we cover when dissecting the screenplays. So if you want to go deeper on your favorite scripts, there's more to interest, entertain, and delight over at scripttoscream.com. Also, if you like what we're doing here on Script to Scream, please like and share the episodes. It only takes a moment, but it really helps us reach new people. And if you're enjoying the show and feel really generous, leaving a review is amazing for us. So that would be awesome too. So Lee, good to see you again, dude. How have you been? And more importantly, maybe, what have you been watching this week?
I good to see you too, brother. What did I watch this week? I had a double bill of one of my favorite subgenres, which when animals attack.
Ooh.
So first I checked out Primate, and then followed that shit up with a helping of Killer Whale.
Cool. Well, edging dangerously close to indulging your shark exploitation addiction. See there, Lee. Well done, sir. Okay, so come on. What did you think, man? How were they?
Okay, well, Primate was a blast. I mean, I've always been pretty fucking terrified of chimps. Just the raw sort of sadism and power that they can unleash should the want arise. And as for Primate, well, it's got some really cool scares, some gruesome kills, and it really makes the most of its gorgeous single location. At one point, they even give the chimp like a touchpad soundboard so he can threaten our poor protagonist verbally as well as physically, which I thought was a really cool little touch.
Yeah, nice, dude. To be honest, like I have seen the trailers for Primate, and it looked like it was fun. You know what I mean?
It is fun.
What about Killer Whale? I'm guessing that one was right up your alley.
You'd think so, but not so much, dude. I mean, it played a little bit like The Shallows, but with an orca instead of a shark. But for me, it was a huge letdown. I mean,
Oh no.
the orca special effects, they were okay, but I mean, the acting and the pacing were what they were. They weren't. They were not good, and some of the dialogue was just awful. It was so bad. It did have a brilliant laugh out loud death scene near the beginning, which I suspect was intended to be like a powerful defining moment for the character, but for me it just landed like a comedic set piece, and I nearly wet myself laughing. It was so funny.
Oh dear, man. Perhaps that was just your sadistic sense of humor, Lee.
It's quite possible, but anyway, dude, enough about me. What's been on your screens this past week?
Well, this week, Lee, I managed to catch a few things. So, firstly, I saw a Charles Bronson film, which was released back in 1973, I think, and this is called The Mechanic. So this is a Michael Winner directed film, and they were going to work together, I think, a total of sort of 6 times, including obviously the 3 Death Wish films, or the first 3 Death Wish films. Yeah, it was good, man. I mean, it's a kind of a hitman thriller. It's good fun. Great final scene, and early turn from Jan Michael Vincent, which was cool.
Nice. I think I remember this one actually. Isn't this where I think it was Bronson? He always carried like a ball of wax to keep his hands strong or something like that.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, that's the one, man.
Oh man, I remember teenage me tried to emulate this with blue tack. Like no word of a lie, it got so the pocket of my school trousers was just like completely lined with blue tack. It was really
Yeah,
odd
pocket warmed blue
sensation.
tack isn't going to keep your
Yeah,
hands as strong as a ball of wax.
the damn sight
Yeah,
stickier
so
as well.
that was fun, dude. I also caught Assassin's Creed, which, to be honest, dude, I mean, I'd sort of kind of not hugely sort of really interested in this one, but it had all the kind of the building blocks of something really special, or the potential, I think. But it
Yeah.
was a bit of a letdown, dude. This one, I was a little disappointed. It's got a real great cast. Justin Kurzel is really a great director, really sort of interested in his work.
Mm.
But this one was just like a little thin for me. I mean, it looked fantastic, but it just didn't quite work, which I thought was a shame, man.
Yeah, that sucks. I mean, I love the Assassin's Creed games. I think I played pretty much all of them from start to finish, but
Mm.
it could have made such a great movie franchise as well.
Oh,
It's a
they had
shame they dropped the ball on it. A
such
real shame.
potential, and you can
Mm.
go wherever you want with that franchise, right?
Yeah,
And they just chose
exactly.
something that wasn't all that interesting or
Yeah.
wasn't received that well. So
Yeah.
anyway.
Awesome. So, what is strapped on the table for dissection this week, my friend?
Okay, man. So this week we are checking out the Groundhog Day inspired slasher, Happy Death Day.
Oh, great stuff. Unsurprisingly, I am a huge fan of this one, and I really think you're going to get a kick out of this too.
Yeah, well, we shall see, Lee. We shall see. So, what made you choose this film for our dissection this week, Lee?
Okay, so first off, this is another great example of something I've sort of flogged into the ground, but it's a killer concept. I've spoken before, often, many times, about how important a great concept is, and Groundhog Day meets Scream pretty much sells itself. More importantly, though, I think this movie is an absolutely fantastic example of character development. Our protagonist uses the film's crux to learn and grow, not necessarily willingly at first, but by the end of the film, she's kind of evolved into a new woman, and as such, she is rewarded with a new chance at life.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, it's not something we've really looked at in great detail before, is it? The kind of character growth and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, a lot of horror films use something of a flat arc, i.e., the protagonist doesn't really grow or change. And this may sound a little restrictive, but it's actually the key point in a lot of horror narratives. The protagonist doesn't have to change. They are comfortable in themselves and their truth. Instead, they force the world around them to change. They defeat the killer, expose the evil, or survive in a world gone mad. This allows the writer to focus more on the horror and less on the character. Ellen Ripley, Laurie Strode, Clarice Starling are arguably the most famous protagonists in horror with flat arcs. They already have everything they need to defeat the killer. As long as they kind of hold true to their principles and don't compromise their morals, they will persevere and save the day.
Yeah. I I have to say, Lee, like I really do quite like a flat character arc at times. I mean, they can be really useful as a sort of
Mm.
anchor for audiences, in a film where the world is somewhat fantastical or kind of wholly different to our own.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the other reason we're looking at the film is something we've touched upon briefly in past episodes, but I figured this would be a great time to dig a little deeper into it, is that this movie is a near perfect example of Blake Snyder's infamous beat sheet.
Nice, dude. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, love him or hate him, pretty much every amateur screenwriter has at some point either read or been told to read Save the Cat, right? So it'll be really good to kind of delve into that.
Definitely.
Cool, man. Okay, released October 17th, 2017, directed by Christopher Landon and filmed on a budget of around $4.8 million. Happy Death Day proved to be a hit on the big screen, raking in $125 million at the global box office and spawning a fast-tracked sequel 2 years later.
Yeah, we'll be comparing the film to an undated copy of the script with the working title Half to Death, written by Scott Liddell and Chris Landon, and weighing in at a hefty 112 pages. Now, Christopher Landon may not be a familiar name to some of you, but this writer-director has a solid string of hits under his belt, including the latter Paranormal Activity movies, Freaky, Disturbia, and Happy Death Day to You, to name just a small few of them.
Yeah, it's a pretty impressive list. I mean, even those
Mm.
is it's pretty impressive, isn't it? All right, then, Screamers, let's strap down and slice open Happy Death Day. After being murdered on her birthday, a self absorbed college student wakes up trapped in a time loop. Each day ends in another brutal death, pushing her to hunt down a masked killer, confront who she is, and change fast because the loop will not stop until she survives it. But her body will only endure so much death before expiring for good. So we open with an establishing shot of a lush college campus nestled in the heart of a verdant forest on a fine sunny morning. And I got to be honest, it's bloody gorgeous, this, isn't it?
It's a lovely looking place. I would quite happily go to a further education there. But in the script, we open with what we're so often told is a screenwriting faux pas. The words, "we hear." Let me
Mm.
read it for you. From the script. Darkness. We hear the strange hollow cry of a bell ringing in reverse.
Oh, but Lee, you can't use we hear or we see in a screenplay. It's bad writing.
Thankfully, your sarcasm levels are well placed, my man. Yes, if you regularly digest screenwriting books or online courses for kicks like we do, you'll no doubt have picked up on the fact that using we see or we hear, etc., is supposedly the sign of a bad writer. Is it though?
Fuck no.
Nail on head, dude. I mean, I personally believe that this is a case of bad writer syndrome. And by that, I mean something like this. So, Hollywood is inundated with screenplays these days, thanks to the digital age, more than ever before. And the vast majority of these are terrible. Sorry, folks, but it's true. There's a reason the gatekeepers of movie land are so strict, and it's partially because they are constantly bombarded with utter shit. Over time, I believe kind of a formula was developed to quickly and easily spot the worst offenders. So incorrect formatting, massive text dumps, and for some reason, we see, we hear got added to that list, maybe somewhat unfairly. So should you use them? That's up to you. Is there a chance it could put off a potential reader? If they have a bee in their bonnet over that kind of thing, absolutely. Would they reject an amazing script because of it? Doubtful. But a big part of our job is getting people to read the script in the first place. And the more appealing you can make it, the better. I don't know. What do you say, brother?
I think it's okay to say like we hear or we see. I mean, I think you probably have to be consistent with it if you're going to use it. I don't use we hear or we see and tend to sort of use other means of drawing attention to something if I feel it's needed. But yeah, I've got no real problem with it, to be honest, dude.
Yeah.
Anyway, waking up to this lovely morning is our heroine, Teresa Tree Gelbman, played wonderfully throughout the film by Jessica Roth. She looks a little worse for wear and is disgusted to find herself in some random boy's dorm room. Fun fact, Lee, despite playing a 19-year-old, Jessica Roth was 30 when the film was shot.
They did not make 30-year-olds like that back in my day.
No, sorry, they did not. She is not alone, though, Lee, as rummaging through the room is one Carter Davis, played by Israel Broussard.
Now, as you all know, this is a Groundhog Day-esque time loop slasher, and this scene is going to serve as our re-entry point, if you will, each time the day resets. So let's get a little more intimate with it and have a listen.
Interior, Carter's dorm room, morning. A boxed shrine to Hip, from the Blade Runner and vintage Star Wars posters to the bookshelf lined with plastic-sealed comics. Tangled in black skull and crossbone sheets, we find Teresa Tree Gelbman, 19, beautiful. Outside, the bell tolls one final time before a calm settles over the room. The quiet doesn't last long as Tree's cell phone plays Happy Birthday. Tree stirs through the fog of her hangover, searching for her phone. As she sits up, several things hit her at once. She's not in her room. She's wearing a guy's t-shirt, and the guy it probably belongs to is bent down, putting something away under the couch. Carter Davis, 19, good looks hidden behind grunge and stubble, turns around and smiles at Tree. Carter, you're up. I wasn't... Tree, interrupting. Where are my clothes? Carter, on the nightstand. Tree fishes her phone out. One missed call from Dad. She snaps it shut with an exasperated sigh. Tree pulls off the t-shirt, exposing a black lace bra. Carter quickly turns his back to her. Carter continued. I don't know if you remember my name. You were pretty wasted last night. I'm Tree, Tylenol. Carter, what? Tree, my head's killing me. Do you have any Tylenol? Carter, sure. Hold on a sec. He starts rummaging through the debris of his room while Tree finishes getting dressed. Carter finds a bottle of aspirin in a toiletry bag that was hidden under a pair of jeans. He offers her a pill. She snatches the bottle and dumps 3 in her hand and dry swallows them like a pro. Carter continued, I'm Carter. Tree, interrupting again. Not a word of this to anyone. Got it? Carter, sure. Tree starts to leave. The door is covered in a collage of band stickers and other bits and strips of randomness. In the middle of it all is a bumper sticker that proclaims, Today is the first day of the rest of your life. Tree opens the door and collides with a lanky freshman. The words are already leaving his mouth. Freshman, dude, did you hit that fine vagina or what? He meets Tree's hard stare and instantly shrinks. Tree pushes past him. Carter shoots the freshman a look. Carter, nice one, dickweed. Carter's eyes fall on Tree's gold bracelet lying on the floor as it catches the light from the open window. She must have knocked it off the nightstand in her haste.
Nice. I mean, with the exception of the bracelet at the end, the scene plays out pretty much exactly as it does sort of on the page to the screen. We do notice the bracelet a little earlier in the scene on the screen, though.
So as Tree makes her way back to her sorority house, she passes several interesting occurrences that we just know are going to come back into play somewhere down the line, Lee. A young girl with a petition to stop global warming, sprinklers soaking a young couple, a car alarm, and a group of frat pledgers singing Bottle of Beer on a Wall for 26 hours straight as one passes out.
Yeah, I mean, as a survivor of the UK education system, I must confess that all this kind of tribal culture with frat houses and hazing and sororities are absolutely fascinating to me. I mean, incidentally, and this is pretty much identical to the script again, except the song they're singing is Henry VIII instead of Bottles of Beer.
Yeah, that's right. So, Lee, I have to say, it's always struck me that there's nothing dumber or more annoying in the universe than frat boys. But what do I know, dude? Okay, so back on screen, and Tree is ambushed by a jockish fellow named Tim, who seems hurt that she hasn't been responding to his texts. She verbally tears the poor guy down before walking away.
Yeah, this whole interaction is missing from the script. Instead, on the page, she merely ignores a guy called Keith.
Tree makes it back home, but is caught and interrogated by her sorority sister, the super bitchy Danielle, before making her way to her room. Now, once in her room, she is consoled by her angelic roommate, med student Laurie, who is the only one who knows it's Tree's birthday, and has made her a cupcake with a candle, Lee, which is so sweet of her. Which Tree promptly dumps into the trash, as it has too many carbs before dashing off to class, the bitch. Okay, so in class, she shares a suspicious look with her hunky male teacher before heading out for a lunch meet with her sisters. Here, the collective turn on their fellow sister, Becky, over her unhealthy lunch. As the poor girl flees the scene, she bumps into Carter and spills her chocolate shake all over Tree. Carter returns her bracelet, but is met with an ice-cold response, Lee.
Yeah, again, this plays out pretty much to the letter as written. And we do then get a scene which didn't make it to the film of Tree working in the campus bookstore, which also gives us a little fake out jump scare. So check it out.
Interior, stockroom, afternoon. Fluorescent lights hum in the sterile room as we find Tree hunched over a pile of textbooks, stamping the covers with stickers that say reduced. Immersed in the mind-blowing monotony of her job, Tree doesn't see the hulking figure standing behind her. We see a box cutter in his dirty hand as the blade slowly slides out. The figure leans in and slashes the plastic band wrapped around the pile of books next to Tree. She jumps. Angle on, Keith, the mouth breather from before, standing behind Tree. Tree, don't sneak up on me, Keith. It's creepy. Keith, Leonard wants to know if the books are ready. Tree picks up a stack and shoves them into Keith's arms, but he doesn't move. He just stands there like a lug holding the stack. Tree, anything else, Keith? Keith, I was wondering what you were doing this Friday night. Tree, are you asking me out on a date, Keith? His cheeks turn red. Keith. Well, sorta. Tree raises the gun and stamps Keith's forehead with a reduce sticker. Tree. Sorry, I'm busy. Yeah, so more delightful bitchiness from Tree here, Lee, I think is
Yeah.
the name of the game. So we join her a little later, and after a fresh change of clothes, she's at the campus teaching hospital where we see her ignore yet another call from her father. Some important backstory awaits there, methinks, but she bumps into Laurie, who works at the hospital and is pulling a double shift to cover for an ill colleague. She takes a moment to warn Tree that what she's doing here could have serious consequences. Wonder what she's up to, Lee.
Mm.
We also notice a cop standing watch over a door at the end of the corridor.
Yeah, this film is really good at dropping critical plot points in seemingly nonchalant moments. Very little is wasted here. You know, if something happens on screen in this film, it tends to happen for a reason.
Tree makes her way to Dr. Gregory's office, where she pounces on the man the minute he enters. He's also the slimy lecturer she was making eyes at earlier. Their randy romp is quickly interrupted by Gregory's wife, who gives Tree a suspicious look before she leaves. Then it's back to Tree's dorm room later, where Danielle barges in to remind Tree about the upcoming party. They are briefly interrupted by a short power cut.
Yeah, this power cut hits at exactly 9:23 p.m. and will prove to be a key plot point later in the film and something we'll discuss in a bit more detail later. And there's a little extra in the scene on the page where Tree spots a photo of herself and her parents, which she quickly stashes in a drawer. But these past few scenes, they're all pretty much as written, with just a couple of minor dialogue changes, really.
Yeah. So, dolled up and delightful, Tree heads out to the party, passing a bunch of rowdy students on campus, one in particular dressed in a black hoodie, and the campus mascot babyface mask pays extra attention to her as she passes. Moments later, Tree finds herself at the entrance to a dimly lit underpass, and someone has left an old music box at the halfway point, playing a creepy happy birthday tune. This kicks off our first full scare at around the 12-minute mark.
Yeah, it is at this point any sensible person would just nope the fuck out of there.
Tree isn't scared though, Lee. Unlike my cowardly co host, she's a full on alpha and heads in to investigate. The creepy babyface stalker appears behind her, but quickly flees when she threatens to call the cops. Tree heads on through the underpass, but then the music box sparks up again and Babyface drops down and barely misses her with a wickedly sharp hunting knife. Tree flees, but in horror movie trope number 9, trips and stumbles, allowing the killer to grab her and stick a knife in her face, and boom, our heroine is waking up in Carter's dorm room.
Yeah, this first kill plays out much differently than in the script. Check it out.
Tree, shit. The lights are off along the cordoned and torn up path, but it is the shortest way to the quad. Tree steps around the wooden barriers. Exterior, path, night. Tree walks along the path, suddenly aware of what? Something? Someone? Tree. Hello? She comes across a large ditch exposing a water pipe. She realizes she has to edge around towards the trees. Taking a deep breath, convinced she is alone, she edges her way along the ditch, her back to the trees. Which is when a hand reaches out from the shadows and grabs her around the mouth. Her muffled screams are cut short when she's suddenly aware of the knife that erupts from her chest. Before she can make sense of it, she's tossed in the ditch, where her rapidly draining blood mixes with the water and mud. She stares wide-eyed at an uncaring universe. Then she is dead. So, you know what I'm going to ask here, Lee. Why the change?
It's interesting because in the script, the kill is very much a kind of bang and you're dead kind of affair. You know, it's over and done in what, like 10 seconds probably. Whereas on the screen, the whole sequence runs for about 2 minutes, which is about 2 pages, give or take. So we have like a brutal, shocking, out of nowhere kill with maybe 10, 20 seconds of suspenseful build up versus a long, drawn out scare scene with ultimately a similar ending. I mean, there's no doubt the filmed version is effective. It's a nice little set piece that keeps the audiences on edge for a lot longer. I think the main reason for the change is probably that as part of the whole time warp aspect, we're going to get a lot of death scenes, and you really want that first one to stand out. It's also what is going to hook the viewer into sticking around to see the whole loop aspect come into play. So it needs to be quite a good one, I think.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, my thoughts in this were it possibly has something to do with establishing the tone of the film too.
Mm.
I mean, this is, supposed to be like an entertaining kind of comedy horror, really. And, there are sort of brutal elements, but really, for the most part, the filmmakers are choosing tension over gore and making
Yeah.
it more fun and shocking, I think. I think the way it appears in the film leans into horror tropes for building tension and comedy and away from kind of sudden brutal attacks and shock value. Um, Also, do we ever learn what is causing the loop, or is it literally just kind of a karmic plot device?
Not here, but the sequel does clearly and cleanly explain what is causing the loop. But there is a clue in the film that kind of alludes to it.
Really? Where's that, Lee?
I will tell you in the breakdown, my man.
All right, okay. So Tree is back in Carter's dorm room, and this scene plays out almost the same as it did in the first time round, but with a few key differences. First and foremost, Tree is visibly uneasy as she is experiencing some serious deja vu. This time she remembers Carter's name and helps him to locate the Tylenol before his roommate bursts in and she takes her leave. Outside, on the way back to her dorm room, she re-encounters all of the familiar occurrences from the previous iteration, the sprinklers, the car alarm, etc., before being accosted by Tim. This time she's a little more polite, asking him what day it is before heading back to her dorm. Now, back at the dorm, things continue to ring eerily familiar, with Danielle accosting her on the stairs and Laurie surprising her with the birthday cupcake.
Yeah, there's a cool little bit in the script here that I like.
Tree stops again, turns around. Danielle misinterprets the confused look in her eyes. Danielle continued, "It's been on the schedule board since last Thursday, Tree." Tree, "Yeah, I remember. The problem is she remembers everything." Yeah, that's cool, man. And I guess you've got to be really careful with a script like this because you want to sort of retread enough ground that the reader can really get involved in the loop, but at the same time, you don't want them to become like bored with it either?
Yeah, I mean that's a really great point. You can't just be reprinting long chunks of text as it would become a chore really, really fast. Having said that though, I think there is comfort in familiarity, and the key here is that we become familiar enough with the scenes that we watch to see not only how Tree reacts to them, but how her changing behavior affects how the scenes play out. And we're also, as an audience, going to be looking for clues, now that we know a killer has targeted Tree, as to the murderer's identity and motives. And as those familiar with the film will know, these clues and motives are indeed there for those that can spot them. We also get another omitted scene from the script involving Tree's abandoned employment plotline.
Interior, campus bookstore, continuous. Tree, her blue smock covers her chocolate milk stain, thumbs through her US Weekly. Her brow is furrowed. This is all so fucking familiar to her. It is irritating. She suddenly recalls Leonard approaching. Tree quickly hides the magazine and pretends to be pricing down some dictionaries with a red pen. He eyes her suspiciously. Leonard, "What are you doing?" Tree, in brackets, duh, "working." Leonard, "I believe you're supposed to be unpacking the new shipment, not pricing dictionaries." Tree drops the marker and gets up. As she heads towards the back, she passes the display of school spirit paraphernalia. She freezes and picks up something we don't see. Tree looks like she's just seen a ghost. Her own. Off screen, there's a loud bang. Tree looks to her right, where Keith has just dropped something. He looks at Tree. There's something peculiar in his eyes. Tree hurries past the stockroom door. Keith moves to the display and studies what Tree just sat down. A mask. Keith's big, meaty hand curls around the mask as he slowly brings it to his face. his breathing even louder behind the eerie plastic grin. There's a full-length mirror to his right. Keith twists his head to the right and meets his masked reflection.
So obviously this whole plot line has been dropped from the film, but it's interesting, this scene, for a couple of reasons, I think. Firstly, it's the first real example of Tree exploiting the loop, using her knowledge of the timeline to avoid being caught slacking. And secondly, it's dropping some blatant hints that Keith may be the killer.
Mm. Well, Tree then heads off to her office rendezvous with Dr. Gregory, this time having the foresight to lock the door. She tries to explain her deja vu, but the slimy doc is only interested in getting in her pants before they are once again interrupted by the doctor's wife, who is definitely finding Tree to be more than a little suspect.
Yeah. Before this, in the script, we get a brief rehash of the scene with Tree and Laurie at the elevator.
Yeah, so any thoughts on why this was cut, Lee?
I think, as we alluded to earlier, there's a very fine line between rehashing old scenes and playing off of them to new effect. And this particular one serves little purpose. It doesn't change significantly from the original. There's also a brief scene in the script with two nurses discussing something that has clearly unnerved them, and we'll find out what that is in due course as well.
Yeah. So we then join Tree later that evening, and she's watching an old video on her phone of her and her parents. And we learn from this that she and her mother share the same birthday. Now, for the astute viewer, some key backstory is starting to slide into place here. So, why is Tree ignoring calls from her dad? Why is she so against birthday celebrations? Well, I'd wager the seeds have been planted here, Lee.
Yeah, it's some really nice character building. They haven't spelt it out for us yet. No doubt that'll come soon, but it's some nice crumbs to drop for the audience.
Danielle makes her entrance and the power cuts out once again. Tree then sets out for the party, decidedly more wary this time around. She listens to a voicemail from her dad, revealing she stood him up at a restaurant earlier in the day. She then locks eyes with the sinister masked stranger who eyed her last time. Only as we linger on him this time, it's revealed he's just a regular guy who hurries off to catch up with his buddies. Upon stumbling upon the music box in the underpass, Tree justifiably nopes the fuck out of Dodge and takes an alternate route to the party. Very wise, I think,
Yep.
that decision. She arrives to find the door locked. A man in a babyface mask looms from the shadows, and Tree instinctively slugs him in the face. Boom! Turns out it's a surprise birthday party, Lee, and the guests are impressed by Tree's badass entrance. Danielle bemoans the fact that Laurie couldn't attend, despite Tree pointing out that she's pulling a double shift. She also points out Tim watching Tree from a distance before they're interrupted by Nick, the dude Tree slugged earlier. And despite Danielle's blatant flirting, it's clear he has eyes only for Tree and subtly invites her upstairs. Despite having the strangest day of her life, Tree isn't one to turn down a cute boy, so she heads upstairs to his room. Upon arrival, a stranger approaches her wearing a baby face mask. Oh, Tree assumes it's just Nick fooling around and doesn't flee. Turns out it is just Nick fooling around, and then he activates his light sound system for a full-on cringeworthy disco.
Yeah, it's a real cool subversion here. I mean, we're all expecting this masked guy to be the killer, so it's a really good play on genre tropes. I mean, how many sorority girls have we seen fall victim to this specific ruse before?
Not many.
Ah, I've seen my fair share, dude.
So while Nick jams to his cringy tunes, Tree answers a text from Danielle. Behind her, though, poor Goofy Nick is butchered by the real babyface killer. And Tree turns around, initially thinking it's Nick goofing around again. But once she spots the bloody knife and Nick's body, it's once again a fight for her life. This time she is brutally dispatched by a massive shattered bong. And this whole fatal encounter kicks off at around the 29-minute mark.
And this scene plays out quite differently in the script, so check it out.
Interior, Nick's bedroom, moments later. Nick is sitting on the bed wearing the mask. Tree, you want me to hit you again? He stands and approaches her, face to face. Tree laughs. Tree continued. Okay, I'm not into kinky. Lose the mask. She strides, taking the mask off, but he stops her with a gloved hand. Tree continued. What's going on? She sees something over his shoulder. Her eyes go wide with terror. Angle on the closet. Nick's semi-naked body lies on the closet floor, blood pooling around him. Tree starts to scream as her killer grabs her throat. He pulls out a knife. Before he can stab her, she's already swinging a fraternity paddle she grabbed off the nightstand. Whack! The hardwood cracks his arm, knocking the knife out of the killer's grip. It drops behind the headboard. Tree tries to go for the door, but he blocks her. Tree continued, in brackets, screaming, "Somebody help me!" The music and crowd waller easily drown out her cries for help. The killer grabs a hockey stick mounted on the wall as Tree backpedals towards the window. She pulls it halfway open when the killer takes a swing. Tree ducks, close on the bottom of the window frame, as the hockey stick shears off the bottom of the wooden frame, exposing the jagged glass. Trying to squirm away, Tree loses her footing and falls back onto the windowsill. The killer's gloved hand pins her down. Looking up, Tree sees the sharp exposed glass directly above her throat. Tree continued, "No!" The attacker grips the top of the frame and slams the window shut. Slam cut. Interior, Carter's dorm room, morning.
Yeah, I really do like the broken window kill in the script, but the film is clearly shifting into slightly more comedic territory here now, I think.
Yeah, I totally agree. So Tree wakes up back in Carter's dorm room again, and this time she's convinced she's not dreaming as she stumbles in a panic back to her room, hitting all the usual cues along the way. Now, back in her dorm room, she's comforted by Laurie, who doesn't buy Tree's rant about reliving the same day and advises her to rest up.
Yeah, so I've been struggling a bit with nailing that first act break on this one. I've got it down as either here, now that Tree has essentially realized the day is repeating, or back at the first reset. I mean, my issue is that this one feels a little late in the day, and the first one feels a little too early. And I know there's no exact science to this shit, but I'd love to hear what you think.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, this was a struggle sort of for me as well, sort of to precisely locate it. I mean, I felt it was here too, simply because it seems to be the place where Tree, like as you said, first really realizes that the day is kind of repeating. That said, a case could be made for the first act ending with Tree sort of waking up after her first death. But if I had to pick, I'd put it here because Tree is understanding properly that she is repeating the same day, and this isn't sort of deja vu. And we can now move forward with Tree trying to figure out just how to stop the loop. Does that make sense?
Perfectly. Yeah, yeah. In the script, their conversation convinces Tree to drop in on the school counselor. Their encounter didn't make it to the film. It's an amusing scene and a good chance to recap the audience, but if I'm being totally honest, it's 3 pages that give us nothing new. And, that real estate would be much better spent elsewhere.
Yeah, it's not like this film is short on recaps for the audience, is it?
True.
Okay, so with no counselor visits, Tree takes the initiative and literally boards herself up in her room, nailing boards across the windows and wedging furniture in front of the door. While fortifying her surroundings, she knocks over a photo of her and her mother, which she quickly tucks away in a drawer. She's about to settle in for a quiet night of Teen Mum reruns and snack on Laurie's cupcake when she realizes she can't find the remote. Oh, it's so annoying.
Hmm.
Now, while looking for it, she opens the black envelope we've spotted in our past few reruns. It's a mildly threatening affair with a spinning baby face and a warning that there will be no tomorrow. This scare kicks off at around the 35-minute mark, and as Tree hunts for the remote, the TV turns itself on and off repeatedly, dropping a partial news report about a killer named Toombs, who is recovering under guard in the local hospital after being shot by police.
And that explains the guard we spotted earlier and the deleted nurse conversation from the script.
It does indeed, Lee. Now, Tree arms herself with a hammer and searches the apartment. Her hunt is interrupted by the TV turning on again, and this distracts her long enough for the babyface killer to move in behind her. Tree evades the first attack, but unable to escape her fortified room, she quickly falls victim to the killer's blade again.
Yeah, this is pretty much to the letter as it's written, with the brief exception of a fake out where Tree believes the killer to be hiding under the bed.
And we're back in Carter's room, and Tree is full on losing it now, Lee. She barrels outside, and the reoccurring incidents threaten to tip her over the edge. Dude, I love the way this scene is shot. You know, it's in your face kind of camera shots and frenetic panning shots. It reminds me of the earlier Saw movies, you know?
Yeah, good shout.
Now, finally, she bumps into a concerned Carter, grabs him in a tight embrace, and begs him for help.
In the script, Tree passes out and wakes up in hospital, where we get some pretty vital exposition. But this scene has been repurposed and can be found a little later in the film, so we'll talk about it in detail then.
Now, on screen, she heads to a diner with Carter, who, although reluctant to believe her story, does offer some keen insight. Whoever is killing her knows it's her birthday, and while the list of suspects is very, very long, she basically has unlimited lives in which to solve her own murder.
There's also a great character beat between the two of them, as Tree makes a dig at him for taking advantage of her when she was drunk, and Carter reveals that he slept elsewhere, which considerably ups his standing in Tree's mind.
So Tree decides to take Carter's advice and start eliminating some suspects. And you know what that means, right?
Oh, hell yeah, I do.
It's time for a motherfucking montage!
Oh, yeah.
So the montage kicks off with Tree making a list of suspects. First on the list is Nick, but seeing as she's already seen him die by the killer's hand, she swiftly crosses it out. And next comes Tim. Tree goes full peeping Tom as she watches Tim prepare for a major monkey spanking, only it's revealed he's watching some gay porn, Lee. You know? I mean, Tree relaxes, realizing he doesn't have a motive to kill her, when boom, the killer strikes and Tree is back to day one. Next up, it's Stephanie, Gregory's wife. This time, Tree takes the opportunity to mix up her hair before staking out her next target. Her surveillance is interrupted as she is charged by the killer, who tackles her at full speed before drowning her in a fountain. And next up is Danielle. And after she drops her books, we see that it was her who sent Tree the threatening birthday card. An enraged Tree attacks, and the two girls roll into the road where they are promptly flattened by a bus. Next up, Tree takes a walk through the college in the nude because fuck it, why not?
As Blake Snyder would say, we are well and truly in the fun and games part of the script now.
Yeah, it's all fun and games until somebody loses an eye, Lee. Anyway, the montage continues with Tree lying in wait for her killer behind a tree. She attacks with a baseball bat and accidentally smacks the ever-loving shit out of poor Becky. As she tries to rouse a very possibly dead Becky, the killer creeps up behind her, picks up the baseball bat, and boom, we're back to day one. And it's a fantastic shot here as well, as the shot wonderfully transitions from Tree taking a slug to the head to her landing on Carter's pillow and restarting the day.
It is a fantastic transition. Check how it was written in the script.
Slow motion. The bat swings in close up and connects with the side of Tree's skull. Continuing with the motion, Tree's head slowly tilts out of frame and lands on a pillow. So it's back to day one again, Lee. And poor Tree is definitely feeling a little worse for wear, as after her usual discourse with Carter, she passes out in his roommate's arms.
And now we are hitting up that omitted hospital scene that I mentioned a little bit further back in the script.
Tree wakes up in a hospital bed at the 46-minute 30-second mark, just as the door opens and the babyface killer enters. Her vision is blurred and unfocused, but as the killer draws near, we see that it is in fact Carter. Oh, lovely. She seems genuinely pleased to see him until the power cuts out right on cue and Dr. Gregory appears behind him. Carter leaves and Gregory has a sit down with Tree and explains that her x-rays are showing remnants of massive trauma, scarring so severe that technically she should be dead.
And that right there, ladies and gentlemen, is our ticking clock.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was beginning to worry that the film was lacking in any real stakes. I mean, if you have infinite lives, so to speak, you're never really in any danger, are you?
Yeah.
It's like the Marvel multiverse, isn't it?
Yeah.
You'll figure out the loop eventually, right? Surely.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. This upping of the stake is a clever and very necessary plot device. Now we're on a timer because if the damage she's taking is piling up, then at some point she's just not going to wake up that morning. So in the script, this initial reveal plays out quite differently. Instead of Dr. Gregory breaking the news to her, it's another doctor. And when Tree grows hysterical, he has her sedated, which is when she wakes up groggily to see Gregory, not Carter on the page, enter the room. In fact, in the script, Carter doesn't visit her at hospital at all.
So back on screen, Tree is desperate to leave the hospital and sends Gregory off to fetch her a soda in order to make her escape. As she sneaks past the nurse's desk, she notices that the policeman on duty outside Toombs's room is AWOL. She makes it into Gregory's office, where a search for his car keys reveals a stashed babyface mask. I knew that slimy bastard was Shifty Lee. Tree sneaks through a suddenly very abandoned and very creepy hospital when a door opens behind her, and it's Gregory Lee. He tries to reassure her everything is okay when the babyface killer appears behind him and fatally stabs the dodgy doctor in the back. Tree flees once again, and the chase is on at the 51-minute mark.
Yeah, I think you owe the late doctor an apology.
Yeah, not the killer. Still a twat, though.
Absolutely fair.
Tree and her pursuer make it to the parking garage, where a tense game of cat and mouse ensues as our time-hopping heroine makes her way to Gregory's car. After a last-minute frantic chase, Tree starts the car and tears off into the night. And is this the one, Lee? Has she escaped? It sure looks that way. But wait, it seems her reckless speeding has drawn the attention of the police, and she is quickly pulled over. The disgruntled officer isn't buying her running from a killer shtick when Tree has an epiphany. She'll be safe in a jail cell, surely. So she confesses to speeding and confesses to being on drink and drugs and is happily handcuffed and placed in the back of the cop's cruiser. No sooner is the door shut, though, when the cop is absolutely fucking annihilated by a speeding car, and a handcuffed Tree now finds herself trapped in the back of the police car. The babyface killer exits their vehicle and stares Tree down through the window in another great shot that makes really good use of lighting and reflections. They then head back to their car, and we see that the impact that killed the police officer also ripped open the fuel cap, and gasoline is pouring out, leaving a convenient trail all the way to the killer's car. One lit birthday candle later, and poor Tree is engulfed in a ball of flame.
So there's a really interesting thing in the script here. We have this scene mostly as written, but it's listed as an alternative to this scene.
Tree, in brackets, screaming, "Why are you doing this to me?" Unsheathing his hunting knife, the killer begins to advance. Tree runs. Exterior, woods, continuous. Fighting for balance, Tree makes a futile attempt to flee as her killer, with a clear advantage, takes his time, toying with her. Tree screams for help, but there's nothing but miles of forest. Branches whip Tree in the face as her bare feet crunch over twigs and tiny jagged rocks. With only a 2-second lead, Tree runs as fast as she can. Looking over her shoulder, the killer is gaining ground. Ahead, Tree sees some lights through the trees up ahead. Tree, in brackets, screaming, "Help! Help me!" She looks back over her shoulder again. She's suddenly confused. He's not behind her anymore. Breaking out of the forest, Tree reaches a short clearing. We can see the lights of a farmhouse come into view. Then she drops out of frame. She just ran off a cliff. We hear Tree cry out as she plummets over 200 feet. Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, we last saw stuff like this back in our Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2003 episode. So if this kind of thing interests you, obviously go back and check out that episode if you haven't already. It's strange we've gotten so far through the script without any previous occurrences of this. Are there any more dual scenes like this on the page, Lee?
Yeah, there is in fact one more, an alternate ending, which of course we'll discuss in more detail when we get there. Before we carry on though, do you have any thoughts on this whole alternate scene kind of thing?
I guess for me, ideally, you wouldn't be doing this too much. I would say generally it's better to sort of hash out what is best and just have what you deem to be better for the story in place. That said, I mean, it is difficult to know precisely when these alternate scenes were included. If they're included after, say, a round of feedback, it may indicate to sort of financiers or whoever what has been changed or added, or what alternative could be used to address some of the concerns raised. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I personally think that, like you said, during the creation process, it's a really great tool. And if you're really struggling between scenes or dialogues, or if you're brainstorming, then absolutely go for it. In the case of this script, having two writers, I can see it maybe being a case of split preference. And again, that's another good cause to use alternate text, like as a placeholder until you unify your vision. I mean, we know this is most likely not a final draft due to the working title, but personally, I think when it's down to that ultimate final draft, you need to be clear and concise about your vision. And at that point, at that stage, I don't think there's a place for alternate text. I mean, that shit should be nailed down tight by then.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with that last point. That sort of come final draft time, you should probably have it all nailed down. But like you say, it can be a useful tool, when you're drafting, I think. So
Yeah.
something to consider. Anyway, it's another day in paradise or purgatory for Tree. And you can see all the pretense of social standing and appearance have pretty much gone out of the window as she chugs down Carter's water, verbally tears down his roommate, and then heads out for her house. Carter is intrigued, though, and follows her, trying to find out what's bothering her. She tells him again and quickly proves her point by predicting all the random events that occur nearby. Having convinced him, they head to a nearby diner where Tree, still lounging in Carter's t shirt, scoffs food and rips a fart. Discussion then moves to her dad, whose calls she once again ignores, and this leads us to the clarifying exposition drop that we've all pretty much figured out. Her mum died a few years ago, and as a result, her and her father's relationship is strained, to say the least. The whole sharing a birthday thing doesn't help either.
Yeah, it's a great little character moment here. And really, I think this is the real Tree that we're seeing for the first time here. Her guard is pretty much fully down because, as she rightly states, nobody is going to remember tomorrow anyhow.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great insight into her character, especially when she confesses that she doesn't like the person she's become and that her mother would be disappointed in her.
Mm.
She also reminds us that she is getting weaker every time she comes back. So that clock is well and truly counting down now. A TV news report comes on, and once again, we hear the report about the murderer, John Toombs, being held at the hospital. And having seen the missing guard earlier, Tree puts it together and concludes that Toombs must be the one killing her and races for the hospital.
In the script, this epiphany comes around a little differently as Carter offers to put Tree on a flight out of the country. And so they head to the airport where this little exchange occurs en route.
Tree. Yeah, well, that's life, right? Everybody dies, some more than others. Inching closer to the on ramp, Tree suddenly sits up in her seat, her gaze fixed ahead. Tree continued. Oh my God. Angle on, a police officer, directing the traffic around a small fender bender. We immediately recognize him as the same cop that pulled Tree over before. Tree continued. He died. Carter. Who? Tree. It was my fault. I made it happen. Tree looks stricken with guilt as she watches the cop dutifully waving the cars towards the on-ramp, completely unaware that 3 cars away, a young girl he's never even met has seen him die violently. Tree continued. Turn around. Carter. What? Tree. Take me back. Carter. Tree, I'm getting you out of here. Reaching over, Tree grabs the steering wheel. Exterior highway continuous. The car behind Carter slams on its brakes as Carter's car flips a bitch, swerving into oncoming traffic. Narrowly escaping a major accident, Carter slips into the flow of traffic heading back towards campus. Close on, the police officer, shaking his head disapprovingly as he continues to direct cars. Interior, Carter's car continuous. Checking his rearview mirror, Carter sighs with a mix of relief and frustration. Carter, are you crazy? Tree, every time I try to run, somebody dies. Nick, Gregory, that cop. If I leave, who knows how many more people die. Carter, so then what? Tree, I don't know, okay? I don't know. Carter turns to look at her. His face is so sympathetic it calms Tree's frayed nerves like a salve. Looking ahead, the horizon is ablaze with a crimson glow as the school's bell tower rises above the woods, ominous, foretelling. Tree continued, in brackets, softly. I know one thing. No more running. Yes, this is a really neat little scene, but much of it has been amalgamated into what we see in the film. There is a definite moment, sort of Tree seeing the not dead cop, that triggers a moment of selflessness and makes Tree turn back. But as you'll see in a moment, this is handled differently on screen and definitely for the better, I think.
Yeah, on the page, upon returning home, Tree and Laurie are cast out of the sorority, and it's here that Tree catches the news report about Toombs before dashing for the hospital. It's also made a little more explicit in the script via the following.
Reporter continued. Authorities are still not sure if Toombs is responsible for the murders of more than a dozen other victims he claims to have buried across the vast deserts of Arizona and New Mexico. Close on Tree's stunned face. Tree, he's been here this whole time? Flashback in Tree's mind. Tree is running from Gregory in the hospital. As she passes the room where the officer's empty chair sat, she catches a split-second glance at the closed door. In the tiny glass window, we see specks of blood. Back on Tree as she realizes, Tree continued, oh my God, he's going to escape. So back on screen, Tree bursts into the hospital ward and demands the nurse on duty call the police. She dashes round the corner just as the guard enters the hospital room at around the 1 hour, 4 minute mark. She grabs a fire axe from the wall and follows the guard into the room, but she's already too late. The guard is down and the babyface killer looms behind her. A lucky gunshot rips the axe from her hand and she flees into the corridor. The nurse investigates the commotion and takes a round in the chest as Tree sprints past, and the babyface killer catches up to her at the elevators where he removes his mask to reveal Toomsley. It looks like Tree's guess was right.
Yep.
He's about to shoot her when Carter tackles him out of nowhere.
Oh, what a Chad move from Carter there.
Oh, totally Chad, isn't it? Unfortunately, he is quickly overpowered by the cold-blooded killer. Tree grabs his discarded gun, but it won't fire, and Toombs snaps Carter's neck.
Fatality.
A distraught Tree flees into a condemned bell tower before clocking Toombs from behind with a crowbar. The killer goes down, and Tree is about to finish him off for good when she realizes that if she survives the day, Carter will stay dead. And with a new purpose, Tree scrambles up the clock tower steps with a dazed Toombs in pursuit. Upon reaching the top, she loops some rope around her neck and leaps to her death.
Yeah, in the script, Tree doesn't really gain an advantage over Toombs. She just barely manages to outrace him to the top of the bell tower, where she hangs herself before he can reach her. And also, I clocked the start of Act 3 here. What do you think?
Yeah, I'd agree with that pretty much. I mean, possibly the epiphany is the end of Act 2, and this could be like a break into 3, if you see what I mean. But yeah, it's about here, isn't it? And back to day one it is, Lee. Only this time, Tree knows exactly what she needs to do. She gives Carter a loving embrace, thanks him for saving her life, and then heads out to do this day one last time. And it's a totally different girl now from the first time we saw her, as she goes out of her way to help out those around her. From signing a petition to catching the fainting frat pledge, hell, she even encourages Tim to come out of the closet and be comfortable with himself. The good vibes don't stop there. Next up, Tree tries to make amends for treating Laurie like crap and breaks up with the slimy Dr. Gregory before finally putting the bullying Danielle in her place and planting a kiss on an extremely confused but totally can't believe his luck Carter.
Yeah, on screen, Tree ditches a chocolate milkshake over Danielle's head, whereas in the script, she diverts Carter's accidental drink spill to hit Danielle instead.
The final piece of the feel good puzzle comes when Tree finally meets her dad for lunch. The two share a much needed heart to heart and take the first steps toward mending their relationship.
Oh,
No time for soppiness, though, Lee. Tree's got shit to do. It's suit up time as she kits herself out in black clothes, arms up with a knife, and sets an alarm on her watch. At the hospital, she holds up the guard at knife point, steals his gun, warns him about Tomb's impending escape, and sends him to get help.
in the script, Tree holds the guard at knife point, marches him into the room, and orders him to shoot Toombs in his bed. Of course, the guard refuses, Toombs breaks free, and then we're pretty much back in line with the script.
Tree now heads into Toombs' room, her eyes never leaving the seemingly unconscious man. She tells him she knows he's awake. His eyes open and she pulls the trigger. But the damn gun still won't fire, Lee. Toombs quips that she's left the safety on, knocks the gun from her hand, and the two battle it out into the corridor. The seasoned killer gets the upper hand, pulls Tree's knife, and is about to end her life when her watch alarm beeps. Tree grins, and the power cuts out. It's 9:23 p.m., Lee.
Oh, hell yeah.
Hell yeah, boy. The lights come back on, and Tree has the gun, safety off, and empties the clip into Toombs' chest, killing that murdering motherfucker with no surplus casualties. That night, her and Carter celebrate her birthday by eating Tree's birthday cupcake, and Tree looks forward to tomorrow.
In the script, Carter takes his leave and Tree eats the cake alone.
And we're back to day one.
Fuck.
Oh, I know. It's pretty much how Tree's feeling.
Yeah.
She's manic. She did everything right. Why is the loop restarted? She heads back to her room and starts packing. She can't fight. She might as well try and run again. In an attempt to cheer her up, Laurie offers her the birthday cupcake. Tree dismisses her. She already ate it last night. Ping! Hold up. Suddenly, everything slots into place. Laurie! She had access to Tombs. She could have freed him to act as a scapegoat. And the cake, it was the only remaining variable. She poisoned the damn cupcake, Lee. Laurie denies it at first, but quickly breaks down under Tree's questioning, and a cat fight ensues.
Cat fight.
Yeah. The two ladies scrap it out, but Tree manages to cram the deadly dessert into Laurie's mouth before noting the robust-looking hanging light fixture. And you know what's coming, don't you?
Oh, God, I hope so.
Tree grabs the hanging light and hits Laurie with a motherfucking swinging drop kick.
Boosh!
Laurie crashes through the window to her death, and hopefully, God willing, Tree has solved the riddle of her murder for good this time. Later that day, her and Carter watch the news, and it seems like everything has tied up nicely. Laurie has been named and shamed for trying to kill Tree, and her and Carter can finally look forward to tomorrow. And we're back to day one. And Tree is about to have a full-on breakdown when Carter confesses he's pranking her. And she made it, Lee. Tomorrow has finally come, and Tree can finally look forward to the rest of her life.
Oh, man. But before we celebrate too hard, remember that one alternate other scene I was telling you about?
Yes, an alternative ending, I believe.
Oh, check it out.
Fade in. Exterior, Potsdam University Hospital, morning. It is a beautiful sunny morning. Half a dozen local and national news vans parked out front, all covering the story of the day. Interior, intensive care ward, morning. Tree wakes up in the hospital bed. Beside her is Carter and her dad. Tree, what day is it? David, that's right. Tree, in brackets, relieved. I made it. She smiles, starts to get up but can't. Carter, you're not supposed to move. You've been banged up pretty bad. She lets them lower her back down. Carter continued. Do you remember anything? Tree, Laurie, she's dead? He shakes his head. David, the police know everything. They found her journal. She takes Carter's hand, then her dad's. Tree is grateful. Just then, Dr. Winter appears. Dr. Winter, she needs a rest. You can visit her later. Dad, I love you. Tree, I love you too. As Dad starts off, Carter steals a little kiss, adding, Carter, you still owe me a date. Tree smiles. They leave. Alone with Dr. Winter, Tree winces. Tree, can I get something for the pain? Dr. Winter, in your condition, I'm afraid anything I would prescribe could be dangerous. You might need to put up with some pain for a day. Can you do that? Tree smiles. Tree, I can handle one day, believe me. Dr. Winter excuses himself. Tree closes her eyes, soaking in the sunlight of this new day, pouring through the window, when she's suddenly aware of a shadow over her. She sees the silhouette of a nurse standing over her. The woman is preparing a syringe. Tree raises her hand to try and get a look at the nurse. Tree continued. Excuse me, what are you doing? Nurse, it's for the pain. The nurse brings the syringe to the IV tube. Tree, but the doctor said no. The nurse steps closer. It's Stephanie, Gregory's wife. Stephanie, not your pain, Teresa, mine. Did you think you could get away with screwing my husband? Stephanie empties the syringe into the intravenous. Tree, you've got to be kidding me, whispers Tree, even as she begins to convulse. Slam cut. End credits. Interestingly, this is the real ending in the script, and the one we saw on screen is actually the alternate. And I mean, for me, Lee, I definitely prefer the filmed one.
Yeah, me too, man. Me too.
Hold up, Lee. I thought you were all about the grim, dark, life is shit endings.
Um, so, so normally, yes, I do prefer a dark ending. But in this case, I think with the tone and brevity throughout the film, Tree has totally earned her victory here. And I think to steal it from her in the last minute just seems unfair. I mean, yeah. So come
Yeah.
on, my man, what did you think of the film?
Well, I really enjoyed this one, Lee. I mean, I liked the tone of it, and I thought it was pretty clever in places, and I thought the script was, pretty smart. And there's some interesting things to sort of note when you read the script, which we can kind of
Yeah.
tease out in our dissection. I thought the dialogue was really fun, and I enjoyed pretty much all the performances. I thought they all did a great job. I think this one could come off as something which is kind of pretty derivative in the wrong hands, but I did
Hmm.
find it really enjoyable. And for all its kind of homages to kind of Groundhog Day, I did think this film stands on its own 2 feet and offers up like an entertaining kind of genre twist on a fairly familiar story.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I mean, it's just so much fun, isn't it? Vibe wise, it reminds me a little of The Babysitter,
Yeah.
because while there are sort of scares, there are also laughs, and it just kind of combines to form just a really fucking enjoyable movie that I think anyone would be hard pressed not to enjoy.
Yeah, absolutely agree, dude. Yeah. Okay, then, man. I think it's about the time. Let's break this baby down.
Oh yeah.
So, as I'm sure you're all aware, we begin our breakdown with a retrospective look at our reasons for choosing this film.
Mm. So first up, as I mentioned, this movie has excellent character development. I really love the whole journey the main character goes on in this film. And what's more, I love how central it is to the plot. Technically, you could argue Tree is both the protagonist and the antagonist in this film. It's not really the killer she has to overcome. It's her own cold and jaded nature. Even the killer, when ultimately revealed, is a byproduct of Tree's cruel behavior to some extent.
Yeah, man, I totally agree with all of that, to be honest, dude. I mean, I think it's a really awesome read about Tree being both kind of protagonist and antagonist all at once.
Hmm.
Because we sort of mentioned, character growth and that sort of thing, I think Tree is a classic example of a character with kind of a positive growth arc.
Yeah.
She starts off in the world, she goes on a journey of kind of self-discovery and learns and make changes, and her life and future are kind of better because of it.
Hmm.
And I think it's a really cool kind of example of that just to sort of look at and study. I think it's also worth mentioning this film is really good at kind of drip feeding us information and exposition about our protagonist and her world. And this gives us a really kind of engaging, just slow kind of emergence of Tree as a character. And the sort of central conceit of the film gives the writers a great device with which to do this, building with each loop. But it's really worth considering the mechanics of how Tree's character is developed in this film, I think.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So onto the beloved or despise, depending on your point of view, Save the Cat beat sheet. Now, before I go into it, Bud, what are your thoughts on Snyder and his acclaimed book?
Well, we've discussed it in the past, haven't we? I mean, I kind
Yeah.
of liked Save the Cat. I thought it had some really insightful ideas. I think having a template for a story and structure can be really, really helpful. And there's no doubt that a lot of films do fall into alignment with Snyder's kind of beat sheet and his ideas.
Hmm.
I personally feel like many things, it's really about kind of immersing yourself in cinematic story structure, and then kind of making it your own, and using your own perspectives and your own voice and your own ideas, I guess, to kind of subvert the rules in a way.
Yeah, man. I always think back to that Bruce Lee quote that went something like "Adopt what works for you and discard what doesn't," and I think that applies perfectly here. Some people, including tutors on our masters, they swear by the beat sheet, whereas others find it too rigid and believe that it produces a swath of very similar works. I think ultimately my opinion is, read it. Hell, read everything you can. Read the books, read the articles, but most importantly, read the screenplays. You don't have to obey every screenwriting rule you encounter. You don't have to heed every piece of advice. But the more you absorb, the more tools you have in your toolbox. But lastly, before I get down to it, for anyone who's not familiar, would you fill our amazing listeners in on the BSBS, aka the Blake Snyder Beat Sheet?
Yes. So in his book, Save the Cat, Blake Snyder includes what he refers to as a beat sheet, which basically consists of a 15-point structural framework for screenplays and novels, which, with each beat of the 15 beats being a crucial kind of plot point in a narrative. He gives each of these beats a title, which basically summarizes what it should be doing, and the number of each beat indicates where in a screenplay that beat will sort of generally sit or appear. He's really kind of specific about this, giving sort of page numbers for where each beat should appear. And I have to say, it is quite a useful tool and can certainly help writers map out a protagonist's arc and ensure the story has a compelling and commercial narrative.
Brilliant, brilliant. Okay, so for the first and quite possibly the last time we ever do it, let's break this movie down and see if it fits the Save the Cat beat sheet. So, beat number one, the opening image. And this is where Tree wakes up in Carter's dorm room. Beat number two is where the theme is stated. So Carter's decency contrasts Tree's selfishness. So the key takeaway here is it's important to treat people with kindness and respect. And this is basically what Tree needs to learn in order to sort of complete her character arc and journey. And beat number three is the setup. And here we see firsthand what a horrible person Tree is. She is mean to her peers, dismissive of her father, having an affair with a married man. To put it bluntly, she is a bit of a bitch. And then beat number four is the catalyst. And this is where Tree is murdered by the babyface killer, thus pushing the whole story into play. And then at number five, we have the debate. So Tree wakes up on the same morning and she questions if what happened was real or was it a nightmare? Is it deja vu or are they memories? And then we break into Act Two. And this is where Tree accepts that the loop is real and decides to use it to solve her own murder, which leads us to beat number seven, which is the B story. And the B story in this film is Tree's blossoming relationship with Carter. And this proves to be the emotional anchor she needs to in order to enact change. And then part eight, we have the fun and games, also known as the trailer section. So here, Tree eliminates potential murder suspects, has some consequence-free fun, and starts to grow as a person. And we even get a motherfucking montage in there, so you cannot get more fun and games than that. And we then get to beat number nine, the midpoint. Tree learns that the loop is taking a toll on her body, and she cannot keep this up indefinitely, which points us straight to beat number 10, the bad guys close in. So, despite her efforts to unmask her killer, she continually fails and grows weaker each time, which then flows into beat number 11, all is lost. Tree discovers the escaped serial killer Toombs and believes that he is the culprit, which follows into beat number 12, the dark night of the soul. Tree confronts the killer, but Carter is killed. Tree chooses to sacrifice herself to restart the day again in order to save him. which takes us into the beat number 13, which is break into Act 3. And after fully committing to her new lifestyle, Tree makes amends to those she's wronged and kills Toombs. Then beat 14 is the finale. Tree wakes up still in the loop. She deduces from her past experiences that Laurie is the real killer and defeats her in a fight, which takes us to the final beat, beat number 15, the final image, where Tree wakes up to a real new day at last. Whew, and breathe. But I know these things, like everything in this craft, can be pretty subjective. But do you have any thoughts on this list, mate? Do you think I hit it on the head there, or?
I fucking nailed it. I mean, it sort of
Oh,
maps over pretty good, doesn't it? I think,
yeah,
yeah, I think you've done an awesome job there, dude. I mean, it does map over really well.
yeah,
I think in general terms, like people's objection to, I guess, this beat sheet is that it, like you said, it creates too much of a structured kind of work, and too sort of samey, I guess, over time.
yeah.
But I actually think, it's a really good sort of idea to read the book and sort of study the beats and see how the different beats kind of interact, and how they sort of play off each other, and
Mm.
how they're related. But I also think it's a really good exercise to go through your favorite screenplays or films and then map them onto Snyder's beat sheet, because it'll really help you familiarize yourself with his structural ideas, but also illuminate how many films kind of map across to the beat sheet really quite well. Okay, so let's look at our characters. Are there any introductions that stood out to you as particularly effective or memorable?
The character introductions in this script are really abrupt, just like one or two word descriptions. So there's not really a lot to call attention to here. However, I did like how the first description of Carter's dorm room paints a pretty solid picture of his character. Let me read it for you. A boxed shrine to hip, from the Blade Runner and vintage Star Wars posters to the bookshelf lined with plastic sealed comics. Now, in the script, his actual character introduction goes as follows. Carter Davis, 19, good looks hidden behind grunge and stubble, turns around and smiles at Tree. How about you, man? Do you have any good character introductions there?
Yeah, well, as you say, I mean, the character introductions are quite clipped, aren't they, in this script? I mean, the one I sort of did enjoy and picked out was the intro for Officer Santora, who sort of ends up in the back of his car.
Hmm.
And that goes like this. So this is from the script. Tree slows down and pulls onto the shoulder. Officer Bill Santora, in brackets, 40s, seen too many Clint Eastwood movies, saunters up to the driver's side and raps his knuckles on the glass. Tree rolls the window down, trying to stay calm. So the reason I like this one is I just found it amusing, and it does a good job of highlighting something of Santora's character and
Yeah.
presence, but it's also using a film reference. And I found this kind
Mhm.
of quite interesting because in a way, this whole film is really a reference almost to another film. So using a film reference when introducing a character is kind of in keeping with the spirit of things here, and it's possibly even a wink, to
Yeah.
the reader. And you actually see that in Carter's intro as well, referencing the
Mm.
posters and that sort of thing. So I just thought that was interesting to kind of tease out. Okay, so before we break down the scarology, did you have a scariest moment, Lee?
To be honest, I think the whole idea of being murdered every day until the accumulation of injuries finally takes you out is pretty soul destroying. But I think if I had to go specifics, it's probably for me when Tree is interacting with Tombs in the hospital. Like both occasions, I thought were quite well done.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. He has a sort of frightening face, doesn't he? Which
Yeah.
is quite interesting. Yeah, I mean, I thought the scene where Tree locks herself in a room and boards up the windows was probably, like you say, it's not really scary, is it? But it's the most kind of scary part of the film, I guess. And don't get me wrong, it's
Yeah.
not terrifying, but I thought it was effective largely because of something we mentioned recently, which is the sort of idea of removal of sanctuary.
Hmm.
And, this is Tree's kind of safe place. And she can relax there and sort of think clearly, which in the subsequent scene is invaded and turned into a place of sort of horror and danger. And I think this is just a really effective technique for raising tension and fear because it's something which connects with us on a really primal level. And that's something that horror does really effectively in general. And I thought it was used to sort of great effect to sort of put the audience on edge, I guess.
Hmm.
All right, then, dude, let's talk about scarology. First of all, I mean, does the film more or less conform to the 10-minute rule?
tiny little bit of wiggle room. Yeah.
Okay, cool, man. So break it down for us.
Okay, so our first scare, which is Tree's first murder, hits around the 12-minute mark, followed 17 minutes later with murder number two at 29 minutes. Her third death clocks in at around the 35-minute point, and then we have the grisly, amusing murder montage at 42 minutes. Then following that, it's Tree's drugged hallucination at 46 and 30, followed by the not so good doctor's death at 51 minutes and Tree's fiery departure at around 57 minutes. And then it's Tree's first confrontation with Tombs at 1 hour and 4 minutes, followed 14 minutes later at 1 hour 18 minutes with their final showdown. And then it's time to break the loop and expose the real killer at 1 hour and 22 minutes.
Cool. Well, let's break down those acts for you. So, Act One consists of two spaced out scares. Act Two escalates things with multiple murders and eight scares before Act Three wraps things up with a tidy two scares to cap us off.
Did you have any thoughts on the themes that were at work here in this script?
Yeah, well, I mean, if we're looking at our Parker themes, I'd say, I didn't really get the fear of death or the fear of the unknown so much in this film. I mean, for me, the most relevant Parker theme was probably morality of individuals. Tree is obviously making poor moral choices at the start of the film, and her time loop punishment seems to be in some part related to her kind of grief-induced moral failings and decision
Mm.
making. In a wider context, I think there are a few things going on here. As I mentioned, Tree has this positive growth arc in the film, and her recognition and embracement of her need to grow is ultimately what redeems and saves her. I think the film is it's almost like a coming of age story too, with the idea of overcoming grief fairly sort of central. Tree has to learn to accept the passing of her mother and realize that her behavior stems from her inability to face her grief and develop as a person because of it. That said, I think this film is also about embracing and taking control of one's own destiny. And, this is something coming of age films deal with a lot. The transition from childhood to adulthood. And it's a journey Tree goes on, I think, in this film. And I picked out a little piece of the script, which I think states the theme. So, this is from Tree's tool up scene towards the end of the film. And this is from the script. It says, interior Tree's bedroom evening. We're close on a chef's knife as Tree slides it into the back of her jeans before hiding the handle with a tight t-shirt. Pulling her hair back into a ponytail, she glances at her reflection in the mirror. Her eyes say all we need to know. She's ready to take control of her destiny. Teresa Geldman is going to make it to Wednesday, the 19th, even if it kills her. So I think this is really interesting because the theme, or what I kind of interpret as the theme, is being stated in the script in an action line. And Tree is doing that through her actions in the film. She's taking control of her destiny. She's taking responsibility and maturing as a person, and she's ready, obviously, to go off and do some killing.
Hey.
But I mean, just to sort of bringing it back to what we were saying earlier with Blake Snyder, he talks about stating the theme, and it's, beat sheet number 2 for those of you not paying attention. And he sort of says themes are often stated by, a B character or a secondary character and stated to the protagonist. And this is usually around about page 10 of the screenplay. So at this point, Lee, like in your beat sheet breakdown of the film, you mentioned the contrast between Carter and Tree. And this was used as a way of stating the theme, which I think is really interesting because, actions of the characters put them in contrast, and the theme is stated through actions rather than explicitly through dialogue. And it's interesting, that in the lines I read a moment ago, the statement of theme happens in an action line also. So the theme is being stated by something the character is doing. And I guess what I'm saying is that stating your theme through a character's actions and decisions rather than through dialogue is just great practice. It's something that's really worth thinking about doing, and certainly worth considering when you're doing your kind of initial character development. But yes, I really sort of think that's a great thing to be doing in general rather than stating it through dialogue. Anyway, dude, morality of individuals, overcoming grief and taking kind of personal responsibility for your actions and control over your destiny is what I'd sort of say this film's about. What about you, dude?
Yeah, I mean, as you said, I don't think our usual fear of death really comes into play too heavily in this one. I mean, yeah, it's present, but death, for the most part, kind of circumvented to the point it becomes something of a joke in this film. I think at its core, Happy Death Day is about moral reckoning. You know, Tree is not being punished for a single crime, but for the accumulated emotional harm she causes through selfishness, cruelty, indifference, and that time loop kind of functions as a kind of moral reckoning for her. Let's break it down. So, by acts, in Act One, you know, Tree is, for lack of a better term, she's a bit of a selfish, obnoxious bitch, really. Um, Thus, her ordeal begins, and she is sort of struck down as punishment for her character flaws over and over again. Throughout Act Two, Tree starts to grow and evolve as a human being. You know, her situation forces her to face these flaws head on until she reaches the point where she is willing to sacrifice herself to protect those that she's grown to care about. So, in other words, she has overcome her great flaw and now is ready to become a better person. Hence, in Act 3, Tree now sets out not to save herself, but to save Carter, and in doing so is able to acquire the knowledge she needs to finally break the loop. You know, if anything, I think death is not the fear here, it's stagnation. You know, being forced to do the same thing day in, day out. I'm sure we've all felt trapped in our lives at some point. Well, you know, if you do the same thing every day, you'll get the same results every day. Hence why this repetition is not just a trial of Tree's decency as a human being, but also kind of like a chance for her to break out of her negative life.
Mm.
But for brevity's sake, as you pointed out earlier, if we're going Parker, yeah, definitely morality of individuals. Yeah.
That's an awesome breakdown, dude. It's always good to hear your thoughts on the themes, Lee. I really enjoy your take on these things. So, what, if anything, do you think you've learned from this script?
With this script, I think besides the excellent concept and character development, is interesting because for the most part, we're basically rehashing the same handful of scenes over and over again. I think about at least a tenth of the film must be set in Carter's dorm room, and yet at no point, I mean, at least not for me, did it become repetitive or dull.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean, do you have any kind of thoughts on why that is or how the writers have achieved that?
I think it's down to a couple of things that we've kind of breezed over. Firstly, audiences love familiarity, you know, to a point. It's why millions of people watch procedural dramas and soap operas. There is comfort in returning to something that you are inherently familiar with. And secondly, as an audience and a reader, we are far more interested in what will be different this time around and how Tree will alter the environment around her. You know, so what is she going to do this time? What effect is it going to have? You know?
Yeah, man, that's really cool. Well, I thought the script was actually really well written. The action lines are sort of 2 or 3 lines in length. There's no big kind of blocks of text. It's formatted excellently. The dialogue's funny. The script is really well structured. And again, it's worth reading the script and transposing it to Snyder's beat sheet just as an
Yeah.
exercise in structure. I'd really recommend that. A couple of things that jumped out at me from the script. I mean, initially, the writers have used a lot of questions in the action lines, and we sort of touched on this a little bit with the Terminator script, but they're used much more frequently here. So I've just picked out a few examples just to highlight this. This first one is from the time Carter gives Tree back her necklace. And in the script, it says, reaching into his pocket, he drops it into the palm of her hand. For a split second, Tree pauses. How did she know he had it on him? Tree finally turns around and walks away. And this next one is a scene where Tree and Gregory almost get busted by Gregory's wife. Tree edges past. Stephanie gives Gregory a look regarding Tree. What was that about? Gregory gives the loop-de-loop international sign for parts on order. And this next one is from the moment where Tree's going to the party for the first time. So it's kind of her first death scene. She looks around. All seems quiet and still until she catches something or someone move in her periphery. Tree spins round. Just more space and the woods beyond. But Tree's eyes zero in on something peeking out from behind one of the trees. A faint glimmer of light, like the tip of a knife. Is somebody hiding behind the tree? Waiting? And then this last one, Lee, is from one of the times Carter's roommate comes in just after Tree has woken up. So that goes like this. Tree continued. Hi, I'm the so-called fine vagine. Freshman to Tree. How the hell does she know he was going to say that? Now, I thought these were interesting as they're all appearing in kind of action lines, and they all are really another form of kind of direction on the page, if that makes sense. So it's sort of suggesting to actors and the production team, what they should be thinking and focusing on. And I think it's obviously different from what we've seen previously with writer directors, where they're talking about camera shots. But this
Yeah.
sort of idea of using questions in the action lines is really kind of a prompt, I think, and it is kind of
Mm.
a sort of way of directing on the page. But I think it's also an interesting kind of way of prompting a show don't tell moment. How the characters react to what they're being presented with tells us, the audience, what they're thinking, the nature of their relationships, a reaction to things that are happening. So it's really, in this script at least, I think, being used as a show don't tell exposition kind of delivery tool. And I thought
Yeah.
that was really interesting. I think that's something I quite like as a technique. And I just wonder what your thoughts were on this.
Yeah, man. I mean, I love it. I think it's a really cool way to get into characters' heads. I'd argue perhaps in a script format, it's more telling rather than a showing moment. But it's such an easy cue for an actor and a reader to work with. We can picture the response so easily.
Hmm. That's interesting because I hadn't, yeah, I mean, certainly when you're reading the script, it's a telling, not showing, isn't it?
Mm.
But in an action line, that translates to a visual moment
Yeah,
rather than
yeah,
a moment of dialogue. And I
yeah,
think traditionally, when we think of showing, don't tell, or show, don't tell, it's don't say things in dialogue, it's show things visually.
yeah, yeah.
And I think those questions are sort of prompting a visual sort
Visual
of
response.
show rather than a,
Mm.
a dialogue driven tell. But I get what you're
Yeah,
saying. Like in the script,
yeah.
it is a sort of a
Mm.
kind of a tell rather than a show. But
Yeah,
anyway,
I get what you're saying too. Yeah,
just
that's
thought
a
that
good
was
one.
interesting. I quite like the
Mm.
technique. Yeah, I thought it was cool. The other thing I wanted to draw attention to is from a passage we've already looked at, but it was the last few lines that I wanted to focus on for a moment. So I'll read it again, but here's the sort of passage in full. So it says, interior, Tree's bedroom, evening. We're close on a chef's knife as Tree slides it into the back of her jeans before hiding the handle with a tight t-shirt. Pulling her hair back into a ponytail, she glances at her reflection in the mirror. Her eyes say all that we need to know. She's ready to take control of her destiny. Teresa Geldman is going to make it to Wednesday the 19th, even if it kills her. So it's the last few lines here, Lee, that I wanted to zero in on. I think these lines do something. They relay something to the actor as to the determination of the character. But what I think is interesting is how the lines are broken up, and that whilst they give information to the performer and convey information about the character, the lines and the way that they're configured on the page feel like they're more about reader engagement and style,
Mm.
or writer personality, and probably kind of chiefly tone. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on that, and if this is something that you like as well.
Yeah, I do. I do like it. I think it's great. I mean that particular like those last two lines could quite easily be a poster blurb or something you'd find on the back of a DVD case. It's easy sometimes, I think, to forget that screenplays are quite literally works of art. I mean, we get so caught up with the whole, will it be a movie? Will it get made? And if you're lucky enough to have something made, sometimes the script will become an afterthought. But something like this, I think, just shows a great understanding of the craft. And me, I'm all about that shit.
Yeah, nice, man. Yeah, I mean, I love it too. I think it's something like that really elevates the reading experience when you're, as the reader of the script, you get a little wink from the
Mm.
screenwriter, and
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
we've spoken about this a little bit with sort of when we were speaking to Chris Devlin and the Cobweb script and him sort of
Mm.
putting in things which are kind of eye-catching and kind of a wink and just sort of it's engaging the reader in a way. And we
Yeah.
saw, I wonder whether this is just me spitballing, but I wonder whether there's a sort of tonal thing that this maybe works in certain scripts where it wouldn't in others.
Mm.
We
Yeah.
see stuff like this in the sort of Monster Squad script with Shane Black and the Babysitter script.
Yeah.
And it's that they have a similar tone.
They do, don't they? Yeah, they
Yeah. So
really
whether
do.
like using this technique to kind of engage the reader and give them a little wink and, something that maybe doesn't necessarily appear on the screen per se, is something that works in this kind of lighter, sort of slightly more comedic tone,
Yeah.
as opposed to something which is sort of way more dark and way more
Yeah,
serious.
probably be a bit out of place in The Exorcist or
Yeah,
Schindler's
yeah,
List or
yeah. You know
something
what I'm
like
saying?
that, you know.
Yeah,
So,
just interesting, I thought. Anyway,
yeah, no, that's a really good point, actually. Yeah, really good.
yeah. Okay, so anyway, you mentioned earlier that there was a clue to the cause of the time loop. Can you elaborate on that? And you also mentioned that there were hints as to the killer's identity scattered throughout, but I honestly, Lee, I can't say I spotted them.
Okay, yep, sure thing. So first up, the time loop, and spoilers abound, obviously. It's revealed in the sequel that the time loop is caused by an experimental device in the science lab that malfunctions at, you guessed it, 9:23 p.m., causing, or as a result of, I can't remember off the top of my head which, the blackout. As for the killer's identity, there are indeed a few clues, or at least ones that I spotted. First up, Tree is never killed during the day, only ever in the evening. Why is that? Because Laurie is working a double shift and isn't free during the day. Secondly, when the killer ignites the police car, they use a birthday candle. Could just be a symbolic coincidence, or that Laurie brought a pack to put one on Tree's cupcake. And then finally, when Tree is confronted by Toombs in the hospital, he almost immediately removes his mask and starts talking, which is something that the real killer, Laurie, never did once in any of the loops. She was always dead silent, and that mask stayed on throughout.
Nice detective work, Lee. If I if I'm ever trapped in my own sort of murderous time loop, I'm calling you, brother. You can come, you
Nice.
can come and help me work out my my
For
time
sure,
loop
dude. Yep.
disasters. Okay, well, I think we're almost about done here. Before we wrap up and talk about our next episode, what would you rate the script and film as here?
I think they're both really solid, and I'm going to drop them 8 out of 10 apiece.
Yeah, I'd agree, dude. I mean, I think the script is excellently written and the film is excellently made. So yeah, it's 8 out of 10 a piece for me too, man.
Nice, nice. So highly respectable, 16 out of 20 for both the film and the script. And dude, if you enjoyed this one, check out the sequel, Happy Death Day to You. It picks right up where the first one left off and is another really awesome film.
Nice, man. Yeah, I'll probably check that out. So what's on the agenda for next time, Lee?
Well, I feel like we've been a little too light-hearted these past couple of episodes. So next time we are going dark as fuck with the soul-destroyingly bleak British classic Eden Lake.
Oh, I'd have to say, Lee, I'm not on a bleak cinema kick at the moment, man.
Are you ever?
So we'll see how I get on with that one. I mean, it's going to be a first time viewing for me on this one as well. So
Nice.
yeah, we'll see how I get on. Anyway, if you enjoyed the podcast, please hit like and subscribe. It's totally free. And if you're feeling generous, please leave us a review on your podcatcher of choice because it really helps us. Check out our socials. We're on Facebook and Blue Sky and can be reached there. We also publish to YouTube, so you can listen to us there. There's no visuals, but plenty of audio goodness. Feel free to drop us a line with any thoughts on our website. That's www.scripttoscreenpodcast.com. We always love hearing from you guys, and we have much more content there, as we said, script samples, scarology graphs, all sorts. And don't forget, we are also offering script reading services. We will analyze your script and give you tailored feedback on your work. We are also producing pitch decks for projects. We will collaborate with you to create a stunning pitch deck for your project, which you can take out into the world and get pitching. So if that's something of interest, go to the website, navigate to the script reading page, and you can get all of the info there. And something else that's happening, isn't it, fairly soon, Lee?
Yep.
We're recording this in March 2026, and on the 13th of March, 13th and 14th, there is the Screams by the Sea film festival happening in Bournemouth, which is a wonderful local film festival dedicated to the horror genre. And we've been invited along, haven't we, to do a live podcast. So that's going to
Absolutely.
be on the 13th of March at 12 noon at the Brass House in Bournemouth, and it's totally free to come along. We'll be recording a live podcast. It will be airing up on here at some point as well. But if you want to meet us, say hello, you want to come out and support the podcast, and obviously come out and support Screams by the Sea, we'd love to see you there. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So hopefully we will say hello and see you there. But until next time, do take care.
From script analysis to scene breakdowns, we'll be dissecting your favorite horror movies to see just what makes them tick. So whether you're a seasoned horror aficionado or just starting to explore the genre, join us as we unravel the spine-tingling stories that haunt the silver screen.
I'm Will. Wait a minute, Lee.